Thank you, Mr. Laston. It is a great honor for me to make a presentation here. And though I'm coming from Japan, today I'd like to present ERIA, Economic Research Institute of ASEAN and East Asia. And I'd like to explain who we are. We are an international organization established back in 2008 with the participation of ASEAN, China, Japan, Korea, India, Australia, New Zealand, US and Russia for serving economic cooperation under the format of East Asia Summit. And energy is one of the most important pillars of our research activities, and I'm a senior policy fellow there. And today I'm going to talk about fossil fuel and environment and India and ASEAN case. And when I was working for the Japanese government as the energy and environment expert, I was heavily engaged in climate change negotiation in the UN. So I went to COP25 last year, and I was very much amazed with the growing gap between the COP narrative and energy reality in this region. So my point today is how to narrow the gap, or how should we deliver our energy reality messages to the COP world. This is the outlook of fossil fuel in ASEAN in the business as usual case. And as you can see, between now and 2040, fossil fuel will continue to play a dominant role in ASEAN energy mix in terms of primary energy and also power generation mix. And this situation is the same in India, and also compared with ASEAN, the coal has even higher share in India in terms of primary energy consumption and power generation. And because of that, from now to 2050, Asian region will occupy the bulk of incremental CO2 and energy consumptions. And in Asia, while China could see the peaking out of CO2 emissions even before 2030, but India and ASEAN will continue to see the continuous increase of CO2 emissions. And fossil fuel dominant future, apparently, is not compatible with Paris Agreement. And Paris-compatible SDS, Sustainable Development Scenario, which was presented by Mr. Tanaka, demand drastic reduction of fossil fuel in power generation for all over the world. And in that scenario, India and Southeast Asia also needs to substantially reduce the share of fossil fuel in power generation, in particular coal, and from 40 to 48% in reference scenario to merely 5 to 6% in sustainable development scenarios. So from that background, environmental NGOs argue that 88% of the coal reserves around the world should be kept underground to achieve 2 degrees target under the Paris Agreement. And I don't know how many of you have attended COP25 in Madrid like me, but as I said at the beginning, I was amazed with further escalation of so-called coal stigmatization. And UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres himself is leading such trend. He said, either we stop this addiction to coal, or all our efforts to tackle climate change will be doomed. And as you can see in the black poster, for them, there is no clean coal technology. All the coal-related technologies are dirty. So for that reason, Japan's export to high-efficiency, low-emission coal technologies to Southeast Asia and India was heavily criticized. And as presented by Professor Tanaka, Japan has got 2 Fossil Fuel Day Award during COP25. And I just say this is a bit too extreme, and reminding me of something like Spanish Inquisition during medieval time. This trend is now spreading from coal to fossil fuel as a whole. As you know, OECD has issued a report urging stopping of ODA to all fossil fuel-related activities. And European Investment Bank has announced its intention to stop finance to all the fossil fuel-related activities from 2021. And EU is now developing so-called green taxonomy, labeling financing to fossil fuel-related activities as unsustainable, most notably coal-related activities. And to make things more complicated, they intend to make their standard to global standard through ISO, International Standardization Organization. So there could be various implications to energy sector in this region. New finance to fossil fuel-related projects in Asia region could be squeezed. And utilization of cheap domestic coal resources could be constrained. And energy access with affordable price could be threatened. And replacement of old and inefficient plants with high-efficiency, low-emission technologies could become more difficult, and which is contrary to intended greenhouse gas emission reductions. And all of these, say, ideological argument is coming to the belief that climate change is a supreme objective. But however, climate change is one of the 17 SDGs, not a supreme objective. And priority among SDGs, 17 SDGs, could naturally different across the countries. Most SDGs are predicated by robust economic growth underpinned by cheap and affordable energy supply. And this figure is interesting. This is a UN survey called My World, conducted in 2015, mobilizing 9.7 million people across the world. And 44%, the most of the respondent to this survey was coming from so-called the low and middle HDI, Human Development Index countries. And by the way, India's respondent counted 900,000 people. And looking at their priorities, the top priority went to high education and good health care and also good employment opportunities. Unfortunately, climate change priority became the bottom. And as I said, this priority could be different from country to country. If this survey was conducted in Sweden, where Greta Thunberg is coming from, definitely climate change must have come the top priority. But in accordance with the increasing share of developing countries in this survey, the share of climate change could become lower. So that is a reality. So we have to face this reality. And overcoming energy poverty is a prerequisite for achieving SDGs. And globally, still nearly 1 billion people do not have access to modern electricity. And as you can see in the right column, the improving electricity access since 2000 has been largely achieved by fossil fuel, most notably by coal. 45% of the people who get an access through coal-fired power plant. So abundant coal resources in the Asian region cannot simply be abandoned. So again, that is a reality. And 28% of the investment between now and 2050 would go to fossil-related activities all over the world, and 40% of the projected investment would go to India and ASEAN. So squeezing investment in fossil fuel-related sector because of the ideological climate change tenet could hinder economic development of these regions. So with that recognition, in the East Asia Summit Energy Ministers meeting in October 2018, stressed that the region needs all available energy options, including fossil fuels such as natural gas and clean use of coal. To this end, mobilization of finance from various sources was also stressed in that ministerial statement. So this is my final slide, and I think all the options should be pursued in the Asian region for reducing greenhouse gas emission reductions through energy efficiency, clean use of coal, fuel switching from coal to natural gas or coal to renewables, nuclear, renewable, and also adoption of innovative technologies such as CCUS and utilization of carbon or hydrogen and so on. And important thing is that pursuit should reflect nationally specific circumstances. And fossil fuel will continue to play a vital role in coming decades for fueling economic growth through affordable energy supply. So we should square with this energy reality. And squeezing finance to fossil fuel related sector could have negative implications to affordable energy supply in Asia. So as I said at the beginning, there is a growing gap between energy reality in this region and COP narrative. So emerging, I dare say, eco-fundamentalism will not make the world happy. Asian region needs to deliver messages about their energy reality and to infuse more pragmatism in COP debate. And this year, the COP26 is to be held in UK, Glasgow, and UK government must be very much aggressive. Again, the tackling climate change. Also, they might be very much, blunt, attacking the use of fossil fuels. But unfortunately, in COP arena, I have not heard so much counter-argument from developing Asian countries about the role of fossil fuels. We are all tackling the how to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, facing reality of energy situation in each country. And all the topic addressed in this conference is very much valid and relevant. But the ideological, rejection of fossil fuels may not be so much constructive for our debate. So that kind of pragmatism should be infused in the COP debate. That is my strong hope and belief. So thank you very much for your attention. Let me conclude my presentation. Thank you.